November 1941. Somewhere in the Libyan desert, 500 miles behind German lines, a man named Trooper Frank Jopling is lying flat on his stomach in the sand, watching through binoculars as 37 German aircraft sit parked in neat rows on a Luftwaffe airstrip. He has been crawling through the dark for 4 hours. He has not eaten since yesterday morning. His lips are cracked to bleeding from the desert heat. He is wearing no rank insignia. He carries no identification papers. He has no radio. If he is captured, there will be no negotiation, no prisoner exchange, no rescue mission. Behind him, a quarter-mile back in the darkness, 6 men wait beside a 1940 Chevrolet WB-30 CW truck, a commercial vehicle, the kind of truck a hardware store would use to deliver timber. It has no armor, it has no gun turret, its doors have been removed to save weight. The fuel cans strapped along its sides contain enough petrol to get back to Allied lines, but only barely and only if nothing goes wrong. Jopling watches the airstrip for another 20 minutes. Then he crawls back to the truck. Nobody speaks. The 6 men know what comes next. They have done this before. Here is what I need you to understand before we go any further. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how 6 men in a stripped-down commercial truck managed to destroy more enemy aircraft than an entire RAF squadron could in a month. You will know the name of the man who built this operation from nothing, the technique they used to make entire airfields disappear, and why the German military intelligence service spent 2 years hunting these men and never once came close. But to understand how any of that was possible, you need to understand the desert. The Sahara in 1941 is not sand dunes and camels. The deep desert is a broken landscape of gravel plains, razor-edged rock formations, and dried riverbeds called wadis that swallow vehicles whole. Temperatures at midday reach 50 degrees Celsius. At night, they drop below freezing. No water, no roads, no landmarks, nothing. And that nothingness is exactly what made it the most perfect operational environment in the history of Special Forces warfare. In 1940, a British Army officer named Ralph Bagnall looked at a map of North Africa and saw something nobody else had noticed. The Axis supply lines along the Libyan coast were the lifeline of the German and Italian war effort. Cut those lines and Rommel's Africa Corps would starve. But the coastline was defended, mined, and watched. Bagnall was not thinking about the coast. He was thinking about what was behind it. He had spent the 1930s driving civilian cars across the Sahara for sport, crossing ground geographers marked as impassable, developing navigation using sun compasses and dead reckoning. The deep desert was not impassable. It was just unknown. And unknown to a military mind meant unguarded. His proposal to British High Command was simple and, by any rational military assessment, insane. Form a small unit of volunteers. Give them modified civilian trucks. Send them 500 to 800 miles behind enemy lines. Let them operate indefinitely, living off what they could carry, navigating by sun and star, attacking targets of opportunity before vanishing back into the sand. He called it the Long Range Desert Group. The War Office took 4 days to approve it. They were that desperate. The choice of vehicle is where the story gets genuinely strange. The British Army had purpose-built military trucks. Bagnall rejected them all. He chose the Chevrolet WB-30 CWT instead, a commercial truck, a vehicle you could buy from a dealer in Cairo. His reasons were coldly practical. The Chevrolet was mechanically simple. Any skilled man could fix it with basic tools. Its 6-cylinder engine, producing around 85 horsepower, was not powerful, but it was extraordinarily reliable. It did not require specialist spare parts that could only be sourced through military supply chains. In a force operating 600 miles beyond any support structure, reliability was worth more than armor. The modifications were ingenious and brutal. Doors came off to save weight. The windscreen folded flat. Condensers were fitted to recapture coolant water because losing water in the deep desert was a death sentence. Sun compasses mounted on the dashboard. Wicker baskets bolted to the sides for extra fuel cans. A single Vickers K aircraft machine gun on a Pintle mount in the rear bed. That was it. No armor, no protection beyond the emptiness of the desert around them. The first patrols went out in September 1940. Within 6 weeks, the LRDG had found something military planners in Cairo could barely believe: an Italian supply road running through the desert interior, used precisely because the Italians thought the deep desert was impassable. The LRDG found it, mapped it, and began watching it. Within 3 months, British intelligence was receiving detailed reports on convoy movements and patrol schedules with the regularity of a postal service. Nobody had fired a shot. That changed in 1941, and this is where Jopling's airstrip comes back into focus. By early 1941, the LRDG had been joined by the Special Air Service, commanded by a young officer named David Sterling, who had talked his way into forming the unit using audacity and forged paperwork. Where the LRDG watched and reported, the SAS would strike. What Sterling wanted to strike was Rommel's air power. Luftwaffe airstrips across Libya were defended and theoretically secure, but they shared one critical vulnerability. Nobody had considered an attack from the south. From the deep desert, from the direction military doctrine said was impassable, the method was devastating in its simplicity. The LRDG drove the SAS to within striking distance. The SAS infiltrated on foot at night and placed Lewis bombs directly onto parked aircraft. The bomb, invented by SAS officer Jock Lewis, combined plastic explosive with thermite, weighed less than a kilogram, and would burn through an aircraft engine in seconds. Bombs set on a 2-hour delay, the raiding party miles away before the first one detonated. On the night of December 14th, 1941, an SAS patrol approached the airfield at Tamet. They crawled through the perimeter wire. They walked calmly along the rows of aircraft and placed bombs on 24 of them. Then they walked back out, got into the trucks, and drove away. 2 hours later, 24 German aircraft exploded simultaneously. Across 3 nights of coordinated raids that December, the SAS and LRDG destroyed approximately 90 Axis aircraft on the ground. The RAF's best single operation that month accounted for fewer than 15. The cost to the raiding parties? 1 man wounded. Rommel personally demanded an explanation from his intelligence staff. His intelligence staff had none to give. How do you defend against an attack from a direction that cannot exist? Between November 1941 and May 1943, the long-range desert group covered more than 150,000 miles behind enemy lines. They destroyed or damaged more than 400 enemy aircraft. They attacked over 100 supply convoys. Their intelligence directly shaped the planning of El Alamein, the engagement that broke Rommel's back. The Germans knew something was happening. They could not find the source. Signals intelligence picked up LRDG radio traffic but could not decode it. Aerial reconnaissance revealed nothing. 2 trucks under a net in a wadi are invisible from the air. The Abwehr ran informants through the Libyan interior and came back with legends. Local people called them the ghost soldiers, men who appeared from the sand and vanished back into it. The Germans reinforced perimeters, extended patrols, flew more reconnaissance. They made the operations harder. They never stopped them. What made the LRDG unstoppable was not the trucks. Though the Chevrolets proved extraordinary in conditions that should have destroyed them, it was not the weapons. It was the navigation. Sun compass bearings every 30 minutes. Dead reckoning adjusted for terrain and wheel slip. Star navigation at night. Navigators so precise they could drive 600 miles through featureless desert and arrive within half a mile of a target seen only on a map, in the dark, under radio silence. No GPS. No electronics. A compass, a speedometer, a notebook, and a man who had done the mathematics so many times the desert had started to make sense to him. Frank Jopling survived 3 patrols, breakdowns, an ambush, and 3 days without water after a resupply cache was found raided. A war correspondent asked what the worst part was. Not the enemy, not the heat, the tedium. Hours driving across stone plains in temperatures that cooked you alive, counting miles, knowing the only thing between you and death was the navigator's notebook and the engine under the bonnet. He trusted the Chevy, he said, more than anything else out there. The last LRDG patrol behind Axis lines was completed in April 1943. 2 weeks later, the Afrika Korps surrendered. 250,000 German and Italian soldiers went into captivity. Rommel had already been recalled to Germany. The long-range desert group was disbanded. Records classified. Most members went back to civilian life and said very little. The Chevrolet trucks were sold as surplus, bought by Egyptian merchants, and worked in the desert for years afterward, carrying timber, doing what commercial trucks do. Nobody who bought them knew what they had been used for. The desert punishes complexity. It punishes weight. It punishes anything requiring specialist parts. Bagniold understood that a force operating 600 miles beyond any support needed a vehicle any skilled man could fix with what he was carrying. The Chevrolet WB was that vehicle. 6 men, 1 Chevy, no armor, no radio, no rescue. It worked every time it mattered.